Hey, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of Boss Talks. We have a fantastic guest for you today, Tammy Esponge. She is out of New Orleans, Louisiana, or at least that area. I'm not exactly what city she lives in, but she is over the greater uh, New Orleans Apartment Association and has been leading the charge there for 34 years, and also the greater state of Louisiana as well. They've done a lot of fun legislation things as of late, and they just got wrapped that up. So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to that. But just, I don't know, and she might know how many states or even apartment associations have somebody in that position for that long. That's a long tenure. That is something to be proud of, and that's really awesome. Which means that she is one of the definitely one of the longest standing people in the industry in that position. I gotta say, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but great having Tammy on the show today. And as we lead into Apartmentalize this year in New Orleans, it is only fitting to have somebody from that area yet again on the show. Just a few weeks ago, we had Leah Nicole Smith on the show as well. So super excited to host someone from that area again. We'll get to all things Tammy here shortly, but before I do, I'm your host, Evan Happel with Community Boss, and we have some great solutions for you when it comes to managing your parking, like Parking Boss, as the signs in the back here say, but also some Amenity Boss and Welcome Boss when it comes to manage those physical spaces. So if you need help with that, you want to generate some revenue, maybe help with the finding some people that really shouldn't be there, unauthorized residents and things like that, well, our solution can help you with that as well. So if you have any questions, come my way and we'll talk about it. But today it's about Tammy. So let's bring her to the show. And her song of choice is Justin Timberlake, Can't Stop the Feeling.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop.
All right, Tammy, thanks for being here. Thanks for bringing a great song to the show as well. I always
Hi,
like
Evan. Thank you for
Justin
having me.
Timberlake. Absolutely. Yes. And like I said, it's so good to have you not only from New Orleans and representing the state of Louisiana,
Yes,
but also,
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah.
Just to clarify one thing, I have been in the.
What's that?
It's good.
Tammy, you there?
Okay.
I can see and hear you, so I'm not sure.
Oh no, I can hear you. I can hear
Okay.
you. You're good now. You're
Okay.
good. Sorry.
Okay. It's all good. Not a problem.
We're good.
All right.
All right.
So I was just what were you going to say that you've been in the industry for how long?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry 34 years. I've been the AE for 28, which is still a very long time.
That
And
is
prior
so.
to coming to the association, I worked as an on-site manager and leasing professional for 6 years. Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's a long time though.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know if there's any others in the industry that have been in your position that long?
There are a few other AEs that have been as long as I have. I'm probably up there with about 5 or 6 others, maybe a few more than that, that have been serving as long as I have. There's not many of us left
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that means you have a lot of just tribal knowledge, if you will, of what's happened in the last 28 years when it comes to the industry, not only locally, but also throughout the country. So that's great that you hold that kind of, you know, length of time in that position, because to know what we've tried, what's already been done.
Yeah, no, it does. And I also have recently, I was the 2024 Association Executive Council President for National Apartment Association. So I was very involved in that as well. And, you know, the things I've seen evolve over the last 28, 34 total years I've been have changed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we get into it any further, I'd love to just ask you a couple questions that I typically do. First off, thanks for picking the song. It's a great upbeat song to get things going. Uh, the next question I like to ask, though, is around the topic of parking. And maybe in your time as a leasing professional or in your current role, you've heard that topic come up, or maybe you just have a personal opinion and experience with parking that you want to share.
With parking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Evan, did you ask me about my experience with parking at one time?
Yeah, or even now, if you have any current experiences with the topic of parking, whether it comes to apartments or your own experience.
Okay. No.
All right, not a problem. And what is your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Yeah, not no parking stories that I can recall off the top of my head.
Not a problem. Do you have any? What's your go-to caffeine when you're getting going?
So I'm a 1 cup of coffee drinker a day. That's about it. 1 cup. I do a couple of Diet Cokes throughout the day, but that's it as far as caffeine goes.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm with you there. I get about 1 cup of coffee. If I get too late in the day with the coffee, I won't sleep. So, all right. So, Tammy, you were saying that as we were getting ready for the show today, that you have just gotten out of the legislative can't talk session for Louisiana, and that there's definitely been some things happening, whether it's locally for the state of Louisiana, but also nationally, residual things from 2020 that you've also been, aware of and facing when it comes to the national stage. But more recently, when it comes to Louisiana, you guys had some rent stabilization things that were trying to be passed, and I'm not sure if they were or weren't, but you can share that with us. Another word for that is rent control. So if you want to share kind of what's happening in the state of Louisiana and New Orleans area in regards to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, as far as it relates to our legislative session, I'm assuming you're asking. I'm I'm having trouble with my internet, I think, and getting getting to hear you fully.
Mm. Yeah, just yes, exactly, your legislative session and rent control.
Okay. And so we're talking about our 2026 legislative session. Um, and this session will wrap up in the next week and a half or so, but we were very busy this session, as we always are, especially we had a rent stabilization, rent control bill, if you will, that came forward. Of course, Louisiana is a preempted state, so you can't have statewide rent control. However, they can pass legislation where local municipalities and cities can have rent stabilization or rent control. We fought very hard. We got our members together. Our members are very receptive and uh, uh, and acting when we do call to actions. Um, the bill, he decided to file a resolution to have it studied by the Law Institute, but then tried to pass it. The bill was involuntarily deferred, and the resolution is passed. So it did not go anywhere, but it will come back up next year. And they say that rent control, you hear the reason they put rent control in place or want to do it is to have affordable housing. Well, that does not create affordable housing. If anything, it makes it worse. We have also seen cities throughout the country that are now passing legislation to reverse rent control and rent stabilization because it doesn't work. And look, a developer is not going to come into any city or state or parish or whatever if there's rent control in place. They're just not going to want to develop there. They're not going to want to do business there. We've seen it all over the country. It does not work, and it does not create affordable housing. And I believe you shared with me, you guys just had a state piece of legislation that passed that you guys are going to have rent control there in Washington, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's a lot educating our legislators to let them know why this didn't work. And a big part of what we do as an organization, you have the education piece on landlord-tenant law, best practices, you have to educate everyone involved, whether it's the residents, the property managers, the legislators, on why things don't work and showing them. And we've been very successful at doing that over the past years, and it's worked well in our favor as it relates to legislation.
Yeah, it's got to be friendly for everybody. We care about the renter, but also the person that's paying for the housing also has to have a reason.
Right. And one of the biggest misconceptions we see, and I hear this from colleagues all over the country, is that everyone thinks property owners are these big bad landlords that are rich, and that's just so far from the truth. And that's another big part in educating people, on who we are. Look, we're all in it for the same thing. We're in it for housing, affordable housing. Everyone needs housing, and we're passionate about that. But you have to make it work for all sides, and you can't do things off of emotions. It has to be a fit for everyone involved.
Right, right. Yeah, has to be something we work together on, not demonize the people that are trying to provide the housing. And you were talking about also, and this is something I've seen NAA kind of share, uh, the fact that they actually have a graphic around the topic of how far a dollar goes in rent, and kind of the breakdown of how many
Oh,
cents of a
yes.
dollar. So if you want to share about that.
Sure. So when absolutely, I'd love to share that. So we have information that when you break down $1 of rent that a property owner receives, it's maybe higher in one place than the other. And the average is about 6 to 9 cents on the dollar if they're lucky. We have insurance cost, which insurance is through the roof right now. Insurance. Then there's overhead for supplies and repairs. And so when you put all that into place, an owner, if they're lucky, makes maybe between 9 and 6 cents on the dollar. And that's important for people to understand that it costs to be a property owner. And one of the things we do with, like I said, in education is best operations and practices, and you've got to make repairs. You've got to do that. Well, we have to have money in order to be able to make those repairs or replace that air conditioning unit that may go out. So I think it's important to know that property owners, yes, rent may be $1,000 a month, but trust me, that property owner is not making $1,000 a month off that particular one apartment home. Once you have to pay taxes, insurance, mortgages, etc., they're barely making 6 cents on the dollar.
Right. If anything, they're probably making more of their money eventually when they sell it or something. Maybe they've increased the value in some way, and if they choose to sell it after a few years and it's gained value, then then they make their money then. But in the operating of the asset, if you will, the community, there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah. Definitely, if they sell their property, they would, we did see after COVID, a lot of smaller property owners sold properties after COVID because they lost so much money in rent because we couldn't evict. And during that time, there was a lot of restrictions in place. Property owners were working with residents that were impacted with their jobs and offering discounted rent or working out payment plans with those residents. But, a lot of property owners were taken advantage of when it came to that. And then the CARES Act expired at the end of July of 2020. Unfortunately for the apartment industry, there was a loophole in that CARES Act that to this day, if you have a federally backed mortgage or you accept any type of federally funding or payments for rent, you still have to give 30 days before you can file for an eviction. Now, our nationals worked hard to produce legislation to correct that loophole, but nothing has passed yet. So we're still waiting and working on that, with our national apartment association.
Yeah. Yeah, that's caused a lot of problems. Obviously, there's people that need help, but at some point, it's got to make sense for everybody, and just giving people free places to live indefinitely just doesn't work.
Absolutely, it does. It has to make sense for everyone. During that, evict anyone, and folks were out of work. And like I said, a lot of our owners were working with residents, but I'm lost. And a lot of those owners did not recoup any of that money from lost rent back then. So, and especially our smaller owners. and they had to end up selling, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yep. Yeah. If anything, you're hurting the people that definitely aren't the big bad landowners. If you do stuff like this, you're hurting the people that are probably the closest to the renter because they only have a few properties. And then what do you have? Then you only have big owners.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more there. You're definitely true. You know, um, just like rent control, you're hurting the exact people you're trying to help. It's not going to help people that need affordable housing. So all this does is drives up rents. When we're put in a position where we're losing money, we have to make it up somewheres, to cover all of our costs. And a lot of times,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it goes back to the resident with increased rents and things like that. So this is why, and I keep repeating this, it goes back to education and folks and everyone involved in housing, whether it's the developer, whether it's the, whomever it is, the owner, the developer, the property manager, the resident, everyone including our leaders, our government leaders, our legislators, everyone involved needs to be educated on how it all works, because a lot of times when a legislator goes to write a piece of legislation, I'm like, excuse me, do you have all the facts? Don't. And then that's when we step in and try to educate and work with them to make sure all parties involved have give their input, you as to why this may work or that may not work. And look, at the end of the day, we may have to compromise and that's fine. But there are certain things that education and working together, the collaboratively, is the way to go as we're trying to develop affordable housing and housing for all. So it impacts every single entity that's involved with developing housing.
Absolutely does. Yeah, thanks for sharing on that. Um, when it comes to what's going on in the state of Louisiana in all this, uh, has there been any success in bringing everybody together and trying to come up with a solution that meets everyone's needs? I know it's a kind of a hard thing to do, but are the people that are passionate on the rent stabilization side of things, are they willing to come to the table and kind of discuss a solution for
One of the
everyone?
biggest things, yeah. So, one of the things that, for instance, affordable housing. Well, you want to bring affordable housing and you want to lower rents. A lot of times, what needs to happen is for incentives in order to reduce that rent to help those that need affordable housing, whether it's a tax incentive or most of the time it's a tax incentive where the rents can be at a reasonable rate, to create, whether it's the city, the state, whomever. That's what I'm saying. All parties involved. Well, you want me to bring affordable housing to that market? Great. What kind of incentives is that city gonna offering any incentives? I know after Hurricane Katrina, a lot of that was done here. A lot of tax incentives to bring in affordable housing. One of the problems we saw is that incentive goes away.
Mm,
And then what happens? Well, now we're not getting that tax break or whatever. And, how do you that there's a loophole, that there's a problem there, and that needs to get that affordable housing we need. Like I said, parish, state, the leaders need to work with developers, apartment association, and all those involved, and work together to try and figure out a solution to that. But there has to be an incentive. You can't ask a property owner to come in and develop something and only charge $500 a month in rent. That's just not going to work. They need some type of incentive to be able to make that work for them.
right. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. It's just fact of matter is these people that are providing housing, it is a business and they take a lot of risk in providing it. And if you take away any way to make money, it's just not an incentive for them. Like, why would they? All right. If you can still hear me, um, I'd love to just jump into what's going on in the coming weeks. We have Apartmentalize coming to your area, and I'd love to hear from you what you see happening in the city as it gets closer, and some of the things that you guys have planned for that event and the involvement you've had. Anything you can provide would be great to hear what's going on.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd love to do that. So, yes, Apartmentalize is returning to New Orleans for the National Apartmentalize National Conference, excuse me, for the first time in 15 years. Lots changed in 15 years. I think when it was here last, 10 and 13,000. We're super excited and honored city and affiliate for Apartmentalize. Nick Saban, Nicole Kidman, and Damon John are our featured general session speakers. We have, I'm not sure exactly how many education tracks of education, but it is phenomenal. The lineup they have this year. I actually will be presenting this year on emergency preparedness as we go into hurricane season. But it's not just about the South and storms. It could be storms. It could be anything. So I will be speaking at the Apartmentalize this year. New Orleans is a great city. We have a lot of culture here. Of course, some of the best food you'll ever try. I did share with Nashville, and I'm hoping they're sharing that. Some top restaurants to go and check out. Museum tours, voodoo tours. All depending on what everybody's in. So I created a little bit of everything for hopefully touching on different interests that everyone's coming to New Orleans. As far as the weather goes, who knows? I can tell you it won't be cold. It will definitely have some heat and humidity. The rain. Florida will be our concert, and closing out the event that week. So we are super excited to have Apartmentalize here. I know I will be down there all week. Of course, if anyone needs me for anything, feel free to email me. I'll reach out if you have questions. And we are certainly looking forward to having everyone come to New Orleans this year. You too, Evan. I understand you're going to be here with us too.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be there. It's actually our fourth annual boss brunch that we're hosting nearby the convention center in the warehouse district. We're actually staying at a place nearby. It's called Memoir Residential. And then they have a co-working space as a part of their building called Common House. And we're hosting our boss brunch at the Common House at the Remy Room. And it will be a great, great time. We have, what is it, 150 RSVPs so far. So really excited about that. But we still have room. It's going to be a 3-hour event. Come as you are. Between 8 and 11. So if you have an early morning meeting, you can come by later and get some food, get a coffee. We actually are having espresso, so you can pick and choose what you want there. But yeah, we're here to kind of help kick off the Apartmentalize main part of the event.
Great. And Evan, the location of your event is excellent. That's a fairly new property with the Common House. I've heard excellent things about it. So looking forward to seeing at some point that after I'm finished with my meetings to join you guys for a bit. I have not had the opportunity to tour that property yet. So I'd love to go there and see you guys and check that Common House out as well.
Yeah. No, I'm actually going to be staying there because they have some short-term rentals available too. They kind of have a hotel apartment kind of hybrid going on, which is kind of cool. And so those are obviously furnished units. But the style of the property is very kind of like they redid it. I think it was in a children's museum. They tore it down to the studs and then rebuilt it, but they've decorated it in kind of an old style, very like going back to I don't know what era, but definitely old style furniture and kind of reminiscent of kind of an older New Orleans.
Love it. Yeah. Yes, that was actually the children absolutely correct. It was amazing buildings. I can only imagine what they did there. I've heard some wonderful things about it, but I have not actually physically seen it yet. So that'll be a wonderful stay down in New Orleans. You're close to the convention center. You're not far. I mean, you could walk it, but that would be a little walk. But yeah, great location. Great location.
Yeah, I stumbled upon it. We've done this breakfast a few times now, and each time we've tried to do something like a co-working space, and we landed on this one, and it just happened to be a part of an apartment community. So I thought it was only fitting to have our fourth brunch in that location. But as we
I think it's fitting. You know, Apartmentalize is coming here. You guys are doing that. It's going to take place on an apartment. I think that's it's perfect. I think it's perfect. So
yeah, no, I think it'll work great. Well, Tammy, I just so appreciate you being on with me today, and I look forward to meeting you in person as we get closer to Apartmentalize, and I hope that everything goes smoothly. I'm sure all the things that the people putting it on, there's always going to be things that go wrong, but we won't know. So I'll just be enjoying what you guys have put together and enjoy your city, and all the other people that are going to be in town, I'm sure they will as well. I've never been there, so I'm super excited to explore, and I'll take you up on some of those recommendations that you've provided. I actually made some videos as well. I interviewed Leah Nicole Smith. We did a little fun video. It was like an hour long. I broke it up into like 8 videos, and one of them was about food. One of them was about sightseeing. So it piggybacks off of kind of what you did. And so I've put some of those out there on LinkedIn as well. But I'm so excited to be there,
that is excellent.
And I can't wait to visit. And Tammy, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today as my 155th Boss Talks guest.
Well, Evan, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here today. Hopefully everyone walk away with something today from us. So looking forward to having you and everyone else in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to meeting you in person in a few weeks.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in a few weeks in New Orleans.